In 1964, the Beatles landed in America, and the world called it the British Invasion. 4 lads from Liverpool coming to conquer the country that invented rock and roll. But here's what nobody talks about. While the British were flooding America, there was a whole other current moving in the opposite direction. 10 Motown artists, born in Detroit, raised on gospel, built by Gordy, who couldn't get a fair shake at home, but walked into Britain and were treated like royalty. This is their story, the British Invasion Paradox. 10 Motown stars who found their greatest success, not in the country that made them, but in the country that needed them. Number 10, There's a Ghost in My House. R. Dean Taylor, 1967, UK hit 1974. R. Dean Taylor was white, Canadian, and somehow signed to Motown. In 1964, he walked into Hitsville, USA in Detroit and auditioned for Gordy. He became one of the only white artists on the label, not as a singer first, but as a songwriter. He co-wrote I'll Turn to Stone for the Four Tops and All I Need for the Temptations. Both charted. But in 1967, Taylor recorded his own song. There's a Ghost in My House, written with Holland Dozier Holland, the greatest songwriting team Motown ever had. It flopped. Not just in Britain, not just in America, it flopped everywhere. And then, 7 years later, a Northern Soul DJ named Ian Levine dug through a crate of forgotten 45s at Blackpool Mecca and found it. He had dropped the needle. The dance floor stopped. The song spread through the Northern Soul circuit like a wildfire. Wigan Casino, Blackpool Mecca, clubs all across the north of England. In May 1974, Tamla Motown reissued it in the UK. It shot to number 3 on the UK singles chart, 7 years after it was recorded, 7 years after it was ignored. A white Canadian riding with Motown's greatest hitmakers, finding his biggest chart moment, not in America, but in a sweaty Northern Soul club in Lancashire, England. R. Dean Taylor told Melody Maker magazine in 1974, he was, and I'm paraphrasing, staggered and delighted. He'd been waiting 7 years for someone, anyone, to hear what he'd made. Britain heard it. Number 9, Heaven Must Have Sent You. The Elgins, 1966, UK hit 1971. Nobody told the Elgins they were supposed to be forgotten. Holland Dozier Holland wrote, Heaven Must Have Sent You for them in 1966. But here's what you need to know. That song was originally written for the Supremes. HDH gave it to the Elgins because their driver, Johnny Dawson, was actually a founding Elgins member. According to the Holland brothers' autobiography, Eddie Holland admitted he wrote the track as a favor. He didn't even think much of it. But Sandra Mallett Edwards, the lead singer, sang that song like her life depended on it. In America, it peaked at number 50 on the Hot 100. Number 50. In the same year, the Supremes had 4 top 10 hits. The Elgins were buried. But in Britain, the northern soul scene found Heaven Must Have Sent You and decided it was a masterpiece. Tamla Motown reissued it in the UK in 1971, 5 years after its original release, and it climbed to number 3 on the UK singles chart. The group, who had broken up by then, had to be reassembled to tour Britain. Original lead singer Sandra Mallett wouldn't rejoin, so they brought in session vocalist Yvonne Allen. They toured England as a group for a song that the label never properly pushed, for an audience that waited 5 years to tell them they were right all along. Lamont Dozier later said of Sandra Mallett, and this is a direct quote from classic Motown, "We wanted to do more with her. She was a great singer, but we couldn't do everything." They couldn't. Britain did it for them.
Listen, 90% of you watching right now aren't subscribed yet. If these stories are blowing your mind, imagine what you're missing. Hit subscribe, turn on that bell, and join the 200,000 R&B fans who never miss a Groove Lens upload.
Number 8. This Old Heart of Mine Is Weak for You. The Isley Brothers, 1966, UK hit 1968. Before It's Your Thing. Before Ernie Isley's guitar riffs seduced an entire generation, before the Isley Brothers became funk royalty on their own label, they spent 3 years at Motown being treated like second-tier artists. The story of how they got there is something else entirely. Before signing to Motown, the Isley Brothers had a guitarist in their touring band named Jimi Hendrix. Yes, that Jimi Hendrix. He played with them in 1964 and 1965 before launching his own career. After Hendrix left for bigger things, the Isleys signed with Motown in 1965. Barry Gordy paired them with Holland Dozier Holland, and the result was This Old Heart of Mine, a song originally written for the Four Tops, and later considered for Kim Weston, before landing with the Isleys. It reached number 12 in America in 1966. In the UK, it initially charted at number 47, barely noticed. But then in 1968, the Isleys toured Britain and something clicked. The UK reissue of This Old Heart of Mine climbed to number 3, their highest charting UK single ever. And according to Wikipedia's account of It's Your Thing, it was their success in Britain, their bigger fan base there than at home, that gave the Isley Brothers the confidence to leave Motown and relaunch their own T-neck label, the label that would give them It's Your Thing, the label that would give them a Grammy, the label that would give them their legacy. Britain didn't just love the Isley Brothers, Britain gave them the courage to go build their empire. Number 7, War. Edwin Starr, 1970. War, huh? Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. You know those words. Everyone knows those words. But here's what most people don't know. Edwin Starr was never supposed to record War. The Temptations recorded it first. It appeared on their 1970 album, Psychedelic Shack. And then more than 4,000 students wrote letters to Motown, demanding it be released as a single. But Motown panicked. They were afraid that releasing an anti-Vietnam War protest song under the name of one of their biggest acts would cost the Temptations their career. So they made a deal. They'd re-record it, but with someone who had less to lose. Enter Edwin Starr, born Charles Hatcher, raised in Cleveland, a former Rick-Tick artist whose label Gordy had bought and shut down. Starr told Motown, and this is from the liner notes of the Complete Motown Singles Volume 10, "I said, I can do this. But I have to sing the vocals my way. Good God, y'all, and all those absolutely nothings are my ad-libs." What Norman Whitfield and Edwin Starr created was one of the greatest protest songs in American history. It hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 3 weeks. It won the Grammy for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance. But the royalties? Starr told Blues and Soul magazine, and this is direct from him, "I saw one royalty check. The figure was absolutely ludicrous, and I never saw anything else from that point on." The song that defined his life paid him almost nothing. So in 1975, Edwin Starr moved to England. He lived there for the rest of his life. He became a Northern Soul hero. He performed War on stages across Britain for 3 decades. When Bruce Springsteen played Birmingham in 1999, who do you think joined him on stage? Edwin Starr died in Nottingham, England on April 2, 2003. He was 61 years old. He is buried at Wilford Hill Cemetery, not in Nashville, where he was born, not in Cleveland, where he grew up, not in Detroit, where he made his name. In Nottingham, because Britain claimed him. Number 6, What Becomes of the Broken-Hearted? Jimmy Ruffin, 1966.
But that look of love isn't on my face.
Jimmy Ruffin made one decision that changed his life. In 1964, Motown offered him a spot in the Temptations. He turned it down.
I have visions of so many.
He let his younger brother David take the lead singer's seat instead. David Ruffin became one of the most celebrated voices in soul history, and Jimmy stayed in the background, working the Ford assembly line between sessions, hustling for material.
Some kind of peace of mind, maybe.
Until one afternoon in 1966, he walked into a session where 3 Motown writers, William Weatherspoon, Paul Reiser, and James Dean, were working on a track for the Spinners.
Love grow all around. But
Jimmy listened. He said, and this is his own account from the Motown Museum, "I think I could do it a little bit better. Let me try." They let him try. And what he recorded was What Becomes of the Broken-Hearted. A song about loss so desolate, so quietly devastating, it felt like it had been written for every person who ever lost someone and didn't know what to do next.
I don't succeed for someone's.
In America, it peaked at number 7 on the Hot 100, strong, respectable, but his follow-ups couldn't sustain the momentum.
Left is an unhappy ending.
In Britain, What Becomes of the Broken-Hearted hit the top 10 in 1966, and then was reissued in 1974 and climbed higher to number 4.
You had a sweet love that's now departed.
The song charted in the UK twice, 8 years apart, and in 1970, Jimmy Ruffin was voted the world's top singer in a British music poll.
Searching though I don't succeed.
Not David Ruffin, Jimmy, the brother who turned down the Temptations. He was so beloved in Britain that in the 1980s, he moved there. In 1984, he collaborated with Paul Weller of The Jam on a benefit single for striking miners' families. Because, as Jimmy said, "My father worked in the mines. I understand the suffering." In 1986, he worked with Heaven 17. He became part of the fabric of British music. When the Associated Press reported on his arrest at Detroit Airport in 1984, they described him as a British pop music star, not a Motown artist, not an American soul singer, a British pop star. The man Barry Gordy overlooked found a country that never did.
Come on, baby, come on home.
Number 5, The Tears of a Clown, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, 1967, UK, number 1, 1970. Smokey Robinson had been at Motown from the beginning. He was there when Barry Gordy borrowed $800 to start the label. He wrote My Guy for Mary Wells. He wrote My Girl for the Temptations. He wrote Motown's Identity. And yet, by 1969, Smokey Robinson had never had a number 1 hit as a performer, not once. He had already quit the Miracles. He had told his bandmates he was done. He wanted to stay home with his wife Claudette and their 2 children, who they had named Barry and Tamla after the label. And then, in 1970, Motown's frustrated British distributor needed a new Miracles single. There were no new Miracles songs. So he turned to Karen Spreadbury, the head of a Motown fan club in England, and asked her to pick one song from the group's 1967 album, Make It Happen. Karen chose the last song on the album, a track that Smokey and Stevie Wonder, who co-wrote it at the Motown Christmas party in 1966, had never believed was hit material. A track with a bassoon, one of the only hit pop singles in history to feature the instrument. The Tears of a Clown. Karen Spreadbury chose it. It went to number 1 in the UK in the summer of 1970, and then Motown had no choice but to release it in America. It went to number 1 in the United States in December 1970. Giving Smokey Robinson and the Miracles their first ever number 1 hit as a performing act, after nearly a decade of being Motown's most consistent hitmakers. The success was so big that Smokey Robinson agreed to stay with the Miracles for 2 more years before finally going solo. He called Karen Spreadbury personally to thank her, a fan club secretary in England, had given one of the greatest songwriters in American music history his first and only number 1. Number 4, I Heard It Through the Grapevine, Marvin Gaye. 3, Dancing in the Street, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, 1964. Martha Reeves wasn't even supposed to be at Motown. She came to Hitsville, USA for a secretarial job. She ended up answering the phone, taking messages for A&R Chief Mickey Stevenson, and one day filling in as a backup vocalist on a Marvin Gaye session when the scheduled singers didn't show. Barry Gordy liked what he heard. Dancing in the Street was written by Mickey Stevenson and Marvin Gaye, inspired by watching people cool off on hot Detroit sidewalks in water from opened fire hydrants. The song was originally offered to Kim Weston. She passed. Martha took it and turned it into an anthem. It reached number 2 in America in 1964 and number 4 in the UK. But Britain didn't just love the record. Britain adopted the song. The Mods, Britain's sharpest dressed youth subculture, took Dancing in the Street and made it theirs. It became the soundtrack to a generation of young people who couldn't explain what they felt, but danced to it like they could. In 1965, the Tamla Motown Revue toured Britain. Martha and the Vandellas performed on that tour. The British crowds went into a frenzy. 20 years later, in 1985, David Bowie and Mick Jagger recorded a charity version for Live Aid. It went to number 1 in the UK. Martha Reeves, the woman who answered phones at Hitsville and ended up with one of the greatest voices in soul history, watched her song become a British number 1 again, 2 decades after she first sang it. The woman Barry Gordy hired as a secretary gave Britain one of its most beloved songs of the century. Number 2, Take Me in Your Arms and Love Me, Gladys Knight and the Pips, 1967. Here's a name you know, but not for the reason you think. Gladys Knight was at Motown from 1966. She and her Pips had been performing since she was 8 years old. She won a national talent competition on Ted Mack's Amateur Hour at age 8. She sang gospel with her church choir. She formed the Pips with her brother Merrill and 2 cousins when she was a teenager. They were seasoned professionals. And by the time most people were still figuring out who they were. And when they got to Motown, they were handed material that other artists had turned down. I Heard It Through the Grapevine was given to Gladys first. She took it to number 2 in America. But while her U.S. career at Motown was always strong, never quite superstar, always just below the threshold of Diana Ross or the Supremes, in Britain, Gladys Knight was treated differently. The British audiences didn't rank her below anyone. Take Me in Your Arms and Love Me hit the UK Top 20 in 1967, while barely registering in the United States. UK fans voted her one of the favorite American soul acts touring Britain in the late 1960s. And when Gladys Knight and the Pips left Motown in 1973, moving to Buddha Records, they recorded Midnight Train to Georgia, one of the greatest soul records ever made, number 1 in America, number 10 in Britain. The British had loved her for years before America fully caught up. She performed at Motown's 25th anniversary special in 1983 and brought the house down because the British had been telling America what they had in Gladys Knight for nearly 2 decades. Number 1, the Tamla Motown Revue, UK Tour, 1965, March 1965. Gordy loaded up almost every A-list artist he had and sent them to Britain. Stevie Wonder, 15 years old, the Supremes, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Martha and the Vandellas, the Temptations. Tickets cost $3.50. For $3.50, you could watch 5 acts, every one of them a future Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. But here's what made this tour different from any other. The person who made it possible was a British woman named Dusty Springfield. A year earlier, Dusty had hosted a BBC television program called The Sound of Motown. She had championed these artists. She had stood in front of British audiences and said, "I need you to hear this." She had introduced the Supremes. She had introduced Smokey Robinson. She had introduced Martha Reeves to an entire country. And when Gordy saw what Dusty had done,
There's something about you, baby, that'll make my heart beat fast.
when he saw the size of the crowds that were forming at British airports just to see these artists land, he understood something profound. Before the Tamla Motown Revue arrived in March 1965, Motown had scored exactly 1 number 1 hit in Britain. By the end of 1966, they had 8. Britain didn't just buy Motown. Britain saved it. When the British invasion hit America in 1964, it did dent the careers of many American R&B artists. But Motown grew.
I try to put my arms up.
Because Britain had already told America what it was missing. And the artists on this list, Jimmy Ruffin, voted world's top singer in a British poll.
Whoa, I've got news for you.
Edwin Starr, buried in Nottingham soil. Smokey Robinson, given his first number 1 by a fan club secretary. The Elgins, reassembled from retirement to tour England.
Yeah, now I want you to clap your hands, come on.
R. Dean Taylor, heard by a Northern Soul DJ 7 years late. Every one of them owed something to Britain. Not because they failed at home, but because Britain saw them fully, when their own country was still deciding whether to look.
Oh yeah, please, please.
The British invasion ran both ways. They came to America with guitars. America sent them back with souls. If this story hit you the way it was supposed to, drop in the comments which artist hit you hardest. And subscribe, because we are just getting started.
Love again, rocking up.